Tonight's video is going to be a reminder for myself on how to make this, I'm calling it a shallow shadow box. It's essentially a picture frame. It has an easel on the back and they stand on their own. Well, sometimes they do. And you can put a sentiment in there. You can decorate the inside of this really pretty. I've done one where you put a door on the front of it and it opens like a card. But I thought those are some nice ways to do some dimensional setups inside a card. So I'll be showing you how to make the template so that you can make these yourself. It can be a little bit tricky. There's a lot of scoring that happens and a lot of folding. So first things first, we will need one piece of paper that is 7 inches by 7 3/4. And I have not picked out my paper yet. So we're gonna do this kind of on the fly here. I think we're gonna use a very pretty blue. Hopefully you'll be able to see these lines when I do it. So your piece of paper, again, needs to be 7 inches by 7 3/4. So it's not quite a square. You can see it's longer on one side than on the other. And then we're going to get our scoreboard out. Now this is the part of this that seems like it takes a long time, or there's lots of things to remember here. So first things first, the 7 3/4 inch side, you're going to want to put that on your scoreboard this way. And these are the measurements that are a little bit tricky. Or hard to remember. So your first score line is going to be at 3/8. The next one will be at 5/8. Then you will score it at 1 1/8, 1 3/8, 1 7/8. And then you will score it at 5 7/8, 6 3/8, 6 5/8, 7 1/8, and 7 3/8. So essentially you're going to have 2 1/4 inch lines and 2 1/2 inch lines. Then we're going to turn this on the 7 inch side and you're going to score it at 1/2, at 3/4, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, and 2. And then you're going to score it at 5, 5 1/2, 5 3/4, 6 1/4, and 6 1/2. So you've got something that looks a lot like that, which just kind of looks like a big mess of score lines, right? Now, this is the part that is somewhat difficult to explain via video, so I'm going to do my best. But what you want to do, I don't know which side of this is going to be the easiest to see. What you want to do is, with your piece of paper, with the 7 3/4 inch side. We're going to call this landscape. With this on the landscape side, you want to count from this bottom left-hand corner. You want to come in 1, 2, 3, 4 score lines. We've made those 4 score lines. You want to come into this one and you want to go up 4. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to draw a line right here. Now you want to come from this point back to the left that 1/4 inch. I don't know why that doesn't look right. Hold on 1 second. Because it's not right, that's why. So you're going to ignore what I just told you. Let's erase that. Flip it with the 7-inch side. Yeah, all right. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this paper the portrait way, and we're gonna come in 4 like we just did. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're gonna come up 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're gonna come back to the left, that 1/4 inch space. And then you'll see here that we have a square, a 1/2 inch square. What you want to do is you want to go from this corner of the square to this corner of the square. And then you're going to come straight back to the left. Essentially what you're doing is you're cutting this corner so that when you fold this box in, you will have a mitered corner to overlap. So again, we're gonna come in from the left 4 score lines. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're gonna come up from the bottom 4 score lines. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then again, you're gonna come to the left 1 score line so that you're at the corner of that 1/2 inch square, and you're gonna draw a line diagonally to the opposite corner, and then you're going to come straight down that score line to the edge. Now, the easiest way to do this is to take your scissors and cut this corner that we've drawn this on. You're going to cut this out. So now you have this odd looking little piece, right? Now, the easiest way for me to do the rest of this is to take this piece, and now to do this side, we need the reverse of this. So I'm gonna flip this piece over, and I'm gonna put it in the corner. And I'm gonna take my pencil, where did my pencil go? There it is. And I'm gonna trace this shape, and it should line up with my score lines just fine. And it does, so that's the way that corner is going to come out. And we're going to take this and we're going to put it over here. And again, we need the opposite of this. So I'm going to flip it over again and put it in the corner. Whoop. And trace this shape, and it'll match up with my score lines. And again, I need the opposite over here. So I'm going to flip it and put it over here. And trace that again, and it'll match up with my score lines. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to cut the remainder of these corners out. I'm going to stay as true to those score lines as you can, so you get nice crisp edges when you go to fold this. And the pencil marks won't matter on this side because we're going to be rolling all of this in towards the center. hopefully I've explained that well enough. It's a lot of trial and error that went into trying to figure out how to get that to work on my part. So I have several of these cardboard pieces lying around from all of my efforts. And then up that score line to that point. Okay, so you should have, when you're finished cutting out all of those corners, you should have something that looks a lot like that. Now here, if you're using double-sided cardstock that has two different colors, you get to decide if you want this as your background or this as your background. And I think I want the blue edges and the green background. Now, you're going to want to burnish your score lines. I start with the one closest to me, and I like to get those nice and crisp. So you'll get your, and then you unfold it and fold the next one, which should be that 1/4 of an inch. And then the 1/2 inch line. So we've done 1, 2, this is our 3rd. You're going to score the 4th one, which should then take you to those mitered corners that you've made. And that's the last one in you're going to fold. You'll see another one here, but we don't want to fold that one necessarily because this is where this will be glued. So we did 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to fold this first one and the second one. The 3rd one will be the one that has your corners, and then the 4th one. And do that all the way around. And it'll make it a lot easier to get this frame together. There's 1, 2, 3. This one again, the 3rd one has your corners on it. And 4. Okay. Now that you have that all done, you want to do the top and the bottom edges of your frame next. Before we do that, one little thing that I've noticed about my measurements is that I'm a little bit big from here to here. So what I do before I go and fold this all up is I put this in my trimmer and I just barely shave an edge off of this, because then it allows it to fit in this space nice and tight. It makes that edge real clean. So instead of trying to adjust all of these measurements by a 1/16 of an inch, I have found that this is a lot easier to do it this way. Especially since it took me forever to figure out what those measurements were in the first place. So now I take my glue and I fold this first score line up and I put a bead of glue on this flap here, and then it is going to glue to this 1/2 edge space here. So I like to throw a run of glue in there as well so that it has a nice solid surface to stick to. Then you're going to take this and you're just going to kind of roll it on those score lines that you've made so that it creates a rectangle. It's going to create a rectangular space, and then I have my trusty dental pick that I'll place inside there to push that edge down. want that to be nice and square so that it looks a lot like a picture frame. So you want to line it up with that score line that we've made here. I'll pick it up and show you when I'm done. So my head doesn't get in the way there. So that score line that we made, we line that up nice and tight. And then you've got something that looks like that. It kind of wrapped around itself and sat down in there so you can see where it's stuck to that card all along that inside edge. Now we're going to do this side next. So again, we're going to put glue on that very first fold. And then we are going to put glue on this 1/2 inch space here. Doesn't need a ton, but enough for that thing to really sit down there. I always forget to put the lid on this, and then I wonder why it doesn't work. So then we just kind of roll this into itself, and it sits down. Just real handy. Found more uses for this silly dental pick than I thought I would. And again, you can see it's nice and straight. The one complaint I have about this paper is that because it's not solid core, you can see when this paper cracks if you've scored it too tightly. But for the purposes of this video, it will work, and we'll just decorate it. Now we can do our sides. Now I kind of like to test fit these before I get crazy with the glue, because I want to kind of practice getting those corners nice and tight. So you can see that we've mitered those corners. It puts a really nice edge on that box. Instead of trying to do those evenly, it doesn't look as nice. It kind of looks a little crude. So that mitered corner really finishes off this picture frame in a nice way. So again, we're going to do the same set of steps that we did with the top and the bottom. We're going to throw some glue on this one. Now the other place you want to glue is this 1/2 inch space, just like the top and the bottom. But you also want to put a little bit of glue on this triangular cut right here, because it glues to this. So I throw just a little bit there and there so that I can get that triangular seam to lay down really nice. And it's the same kind of principle. It kind of rolls up onto itself. And so then this is where you kind of want to massage this a little bit. You want to get those corners to sit nice and tightly together. So you kind of have to push down here where you've put that glue, and push down here where you've put that glue. And this takes a little bit to set up. Try not to get glue all over it. And the tighter you get these, the more polished it will look when it's finished. See how that's set up there nice and tight? It looks really nice. You can see these score lines. I have not yet figured out how to stop that score line so that you can't see it. But like my examples, I usually end up putting another frame around that, so you don't really end up seeing it. So that's that side. Take a look at this side before we glue it down. You don't want to bend this too much when you go to fold this, because it won't, then it won't stick. What's happened to my measurements here? I might need to trim. It looks like I didn't get that quite right, did it? You gonna just kind of test fit that. Like I was saying, if you fold this too tightly to itself, this flap won't lay on top of this space. So you kind of want it to have a little bit of bounce to it so that it'll stick down. So you're gonna glue this one and this little triangle here. And then you want to throw some glue on this space here. Now I'm going to make a side note here really quickly. If you want to put a door on this card, the way I did it was I attached a magnet to this space here. So that would be the middle 1/2 inch space. If you put a magnet right in the center, when you roll this up, you'll have a spot for that door to stick to. I'm not going to do that with this one. Not sure what happened to my corner here, but looks like I have a little bit. Be really careful when you do that because you'll really mess stuff up, but that turned out good. So essentially that's our shadow box. We've made our little picture frame. And that's the really simple part of it. It's pretty easy. Once you get those score lines done, that's all you need to do with it. Now, one thing I have noticed when I go to decorate it is that depending on the type of rectangular dies that you have, if you take, let's see, I think it's that one. If you take a piece of paper, this is what it is. If you take one piece of paper that is 4 inches by 5 inches, and on my rectangles, it's the second one, but this rectangle is actually 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. So it's a little bit off, and you can see that on this one. It hangs over, which doesn't bother me at all, but it's a little bit short here. So what I did was I took a piece of paper that was 4 inches by 5 inches and cut this rectangle out of the center of it, and it made a frame, and it was a really simple way to do that. On this one, I took a little bit more care because I wanted a reveal on this side, and then I hand drew the correct size rectangle here so that I would have the same reveal all the way around. Both of them look fine, I think, so you can do it either way. But if your rectangle measures, let's see, your inside measurement for your rectangle would need to be 3 inches by 4 inches. If the inside of your rectangle is that size, then it's perfect. So you take your 4 by 5 piece of paper and cut that rectangle right out of the center, and you'll have a great frame for your shadow box. The only other piece I need to show you how to make would be the easel for the back. And this is super simple. This is a piece of paper that is 2 inches by 4 3/4 inches. And you will score it from corner to corner. And then you'll glue it where this bottom corner, this bottom point of that score line is flush with the bottom. And then it will stand up by itself. And that's essentially it. I'm gonna let you go so you don't have to watch me do the rest of this. But now you know how to make that really simple shadow box frame. Hope you enjoy.